In the heart of a desert, a silent strike changes everything. 7 insurgent leaders, 7 shots, 22 seconds, one mission that shattered the enemy's will to fight. Watch how precision and patience rewrote the battlefield. In the vast, silent desert, the heat hung thick in the air, pressing down on the soldiers like an invisible weight. This wasn't the silence one found in a forest or a sleepy town at night. No, this was a silence filled with the promise of danger, the kind that made even the most seasoned soldiers uneasy. The American camp, nestled in the heart of this barren landscape, stood like a lone ship adrift in an endless ocean of sand. For weeks, intelligence reports had warned them of a growing threat. Insurgents who were no longer just desperate men, but a coordinated force, more dangerous and organized than before. In the camp, unease spread. The younger soldiers, still adjusting to the harsh desert life, watched the horizon, their eyes searching for signs of danger. The veterans, hardened by years of combat, kept their rifles close, ever alert. The colonel, a man whose weathered face told the story of countless battles, was worried. He could feel the shift long before his men did. These insurgents were not just fighting, they were preparing to overwhelm. The attacks started small. A roadside bomb here, a sniper shot there. But soon they became more coordinated, more calculated. An entire patrol disappeared one night in an explosion that lit up the desert sky. The insurgents weren't testing their strength anymore. They were showing it. The colonel gathered his officers and spoke plainly. "We are not fighting ghosts anymore," he said. "We are fighting an army that has learned, adapted, and prepared." Tension in the camp grew with every passing day. Soldiers moved with caution, their rifles always in hand, even during meals. Conversations, once light and full of laughter, grew quieter, interrupted only by the arrival of new reports. More attacks, more casualties. The enemy was becoming more formidable, more relentless. Then, as the threat loomed larger, the colonel made it clear, one shot wouldn't stop them. He wasn't talking about rifles. He was talking about willpower. These insurgents wouldn't break from a single blow. They would keep coming, again and again, until someone took out their leadership, their organization, their will to fight. It wasn't about bravery or luck anymore. It was about precision, persistence, and cold, hard determination. A sniper team was called in. They were specialists, men who moved quietly, unseen, and could end battles with a single, well-placed shot. The camp buzzed with rumors as the team arrived. Their presence was different from other soldiers. They didn't need fanfare. They didn't need to make an entrance. They just nodded silently, carrying their weapons like extensions of themselves, blending into the desert as though they were a part of it. The plan was set. From a ridge overlooking the enemy's camp, the snipers would take out the insurgent leaders in a series of precise, coordinated shots. Timing was everything. One wrong second, and everything could fall apart. They waited in silence. The hours, stretching into what seemed like eternity. The sun beat down, sweat stinging their eyes, but still, they waited. The insurgents below were oblivious, laughing and joking as they went about their business, unaware that death was watching from above. As dusk settled over the desert, the first movement caught the spotter's eye. One of the leaders stepped forward, his hand raised in a command. The sniper's finger tightened on the trigger. One shot. The leader's body collapsed instantly, his command broken. The second shot followed, then the third, each one swift, precise, and deadly. In 22 seconds, 7 leaders had fallen, their bodies crumpling to the ground without a sound. The insurgents below were left in chaos, their unity shattered, their will to fight broken. The sniper team did not celebrate. There was no cheering, no high fives. They simply packed up their gear, melted into the shadows, and disappeared as quietly as they had come. Their job was done. The battlefield had shifted, and they had played a pivotal role in making it happen. They knew that the impact of their precision would echo for days to come, but to them it was just another day. Back at the camp, the colonel listened as the reports came in. The enemy had been thrown into disarray. Without leadership, they had no direction. Patrols moved forward with confidence, and morale was higher than it had been in weeks. The colonel's face remained unreadable, but inside, he knew that this was more than just a tactical victory. It was a shift in the war itself. It wasn't about one shot. It was about 7, timed perfectly. That was how the fight had changed. In the days that followed, the story of the sniper team spread like wildfire through the camp. Soldiers whispered about the 7 shots, the precision, the skill. It became a legend, a story that would be passed down through the ranks for years to come. To the men who had witnessed it, it was unforgettable. To the enemy, it was a brutal lesson. No matter how far you run, no matter how safe you think you are, you can never escape precision. The sniper team moved on, as they always did, leaving behind no trace, no glory. Their job was not to seek recognition, but to complete their mission. And in those 22 seconds, they had completed it perfectly. As the weeks passed, the desert grew quieter. The insurgents, broken and scattered, could not regroup. The American soldiers, now more confident than ever, pushed forward. The ripple of those 7 shots continued to echo across the battlefield, shifting the war in ways no one could have predicted. And for the colonel, the lesson was clear. One shot may not stop them, but when it's the right shot, at the right time, in the right hands, 7 can change everything. As the days wore on, the once bustling American camp had settled into an uneasy rhythm. The morning fog clung to the sand like a reminder of how precarious their situation had become. The soldiers were more alert, more watchful. Every rustling of a tent, every shift in the wind was met with suspicion, and the desert's unforgiving heat did nothing to alleviate the tension. The colonel could feel it in the air, the sense that something larger was coming. Each report he received confirmed what he had feared. The insurgents weren't just a ragtag group anymore. They were becoming organized. Their attacks were no longer spontaneous. They were strategic, coordinated, and deadly. This new level of threat couldn't be dealt with using traditional methods. The soldiers knew this too. They were all seasoned veterans, some with decades of experience, others newer to the front lines but equally determined. However, despite their skills, the fear had crept into their hearts. They could sense that the enemy was learning. They had adapted, and that meant they could strike in ways that were more lethal than anything they had faced before. At night, around the campfires, the soldiers would often talk in low voices, recounting the stories of past engagements. The younger men had heard the legends of snipers, ghosts of the battlefield who could end battles with a single shot, who could change the tide of war from miles away, hidden in the shadows. It was a belief, a hope that these men were more than just soldiers. They were the ones who could outwit the enemy, who could take back control. But in the back of their minds, they all knew the truth. The sniper team was the last hope. If the insurgents had become a coordinated, formidable force, then this team would be the difference between surviving and losing it all. The colonel had spent days evaluating the situation. He couldn't afford to gamble. The more he thought about the insurgents, the more he understood how dangerous they had become. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about breaking their command structure, their leadership. He needed precision, and he needed it fast. He had made up his mind. The sniper team had to be called in. He had worked with them before, but this was different. This time, it was not just a tactical advantage. It was the only way forward. The snipers would not just be hunting men. They would be hunting the heart of the insurgency itself. As the team arrived, their presence was undeniable. It wasn't about who they were or what they represented. It was the quiet confidence with which they moved. Unlike the other soldiers who hustled, shouted orders, and made noise, these men were like shadows. They arrived in silence, with no fanfare, no celebration. They were there to do a job, and that job was simple: end the threat. The younger soldiers, watching them from afar, couldn't help but feel awe. The sniper team didn't need to boast or make themselves known. They didn't need anyone to sing their praises. They were there for one thing: precision, and they had mastered it to a point that others couldn't even begin to understand. The colonel watched as the sniper team settled in. He had briefed them about the mission: take out the leaders one by one without alerting the enemy. It wasn't just a physical task, it was a psychological one. The insurgents had become a force to be reckoned with because of their coordination, their unity. If that unity could be broken, the rest of the battle would be theirs. But it had to be done without hesitation. Every second counted, and so the plan was set. The sniper team would make their way to a ridge overlooking the village where the enemy had gathered. From this high ground, they would have a clear view of the leaders as they held their meetings. The team would wait, quietly, with the patience of men who had seen this scenario unfold countless times before. The mission was not easy. The desert was harsh, the sun unforgiving,